Yo guys, here are 7 techniques used inside of FL Studio. We're going to rank them worst to best. So the first technique is Fruity Soft Clipper on everything. This is kind of like everybody's go-to mixing technique. Just slap Soft Clipper on it. It doesn't work for a lot of genres, especially if you guys are trying to transition into R&B and like more acoustic hip hop. So we're going to add Fruity Soft Clipper here. Now most beginners don't realize you have to push into the Soft Clipper, so they'll start building a habit of producing overly loud, okay, because they don't understand the concept of gain staging, and this actually hurts their journey in mixing because they'll keep making beats that are like +1, +2 dB, but then the compressor is built to be, you know, have an input of -18. So now the compressor's acting different than you normally would have a compressor act because we weren't taught proper gain staging, because we were taught to use Fruity Soft Clipper. And again, the only way to really like trigger this is to push into it. So there's 2 ways to push into it. One is just turning up the clip gain. Another way is going to Parametric EQ2. Lifestyle Did It showed us this. There's a gain knob on the left side here. I never noticed that before. And you could just turn this up into the Soft Clipper. So let's try for this genre. Now this genre is meant to be run through a Soft Clipper. And then we could turn down the post level here to compensate. So we're balancing the input with the output post. And then we can mess up the threshold to round off the sound a little bit more. And some people even use the EQ to like boost into it using certain frequencies, like the lows, for example, to create like a bass sound. It's like sometimes that works, but again, like I said, for certain genres, we're not just slapping Soft Clipper. Soft Clipper is a versatile technique. However, I think people tend to think it's the solve all. And for that, let's rank this somewhere near the top, but not the top. So let's just say it's third in line right now. And I'm going to make this a different color so I know that we already ranked it. Now, the next technique is split by channel. This is one of the worst habits to build as a beginner producer. Again, when we're talking about creative works, there's no such thing as right and wrong. But there are techniques that when you don't understand when to use the technique, if you think that it's just the norm, you'll build a habit of doing it, and it actually restricts you from getting into other genres. So this one is one of those that is just a bad habit, which is split by channel. So the way this works is basically if I were to add, you know, like notes or sequence in here, let's say we're doing drums, I'm just going to add some arbitrary notes. And here's the biggest problem producers have is they get in the habit of drawing in on one pattern. So when you get in the habit of drawing in on one pattern, you don't create much variation because let's say your hi-hats change over here, but then everything else only went up to here. So now people just don't produce that way, is my point. So they'll produce in these like little chunks of time and they don't create enough variation with their music. So their songs sound very repetitive. It's because we're dealing with, you know, sometimes 2 bars of sequence. And then what they'll do is they'll go to where it says the pattern, they'll right click. They'll go to split by channel. What this will do is move all of these elements to their own pattern. So for example, you right click split by channel. And now if we cycle through the patterns, they're all separated into different patterns. And then we can go to the playlist and then arrange them like this. But again, the issue is not it chunking it down into pieces. The issue is producers producing in a defined amount of space and getting in the habit of doing that. You're wondering why your arrangement sounds stiff. It's because, you know, a producer who has like a really dope sound might record 16 bars of just playing kicks by hand, whereas our sequence only drew in 2 bars. So it's like we're never going to get that sound by chasing this technique. So because this is such a bad habit I've seen with producers, even though it appears as if it's a good habit, this has to be one of the worst techniques I've seen. Producers producing in one pattern and trying to split it up later. It creates a very hard road into arrangement. Not telling you guys what to do, is just a very bad habit. The next thing is just turning everything up. Like I said, because we're taught to go into the Soft Clipper, everybody's mix starts here, like above 0. And I've seen it. I've been in a room with, you know, platinum producers before that had 10 billion plus streams combined in a room. Okay, about 5 producers or so. And their stuff was going like +16 sometimes, just way off the Richter, okay, in FL Studio. So they were thinking the beats were hitting because it's hitting FL Studio's built-in clipping device or limiting device. So they're hearing that and they think that's part of the mix. But when engineers get the file and they pull it down in their DAW, when it's not plus 16 going through FL Studio's converter or whatever is causing that sound. Then they pull it down in Logic Pro, they pull it down in Pro Tools, it sounds small and thin. So understanding that just turning stuff up is not the solution for everything. Okay, I'm not telling you guys what to do because that created a whole genre like rage, underground beats, all types of stuff. But that is, just understand that when you get into high level mixing and stuff, you got to have what's called headroom. And if there's no headroom, the plugins don't even know how to interpret the wave coming in properly, I should say. So this isn't a terrible technique. It's just one of those bad habits. So for now, we're just going to put it at the bottom towards split by channel. Now, another one people talk about a lot is called Maximus. So Maximus, I don't think beginners hear this, but I have pretty decent headphones on. These are called, man, I forgot the name of the Audeze, okay, MM500s. Okay, they sent these to me, and I can hear the boxiness Maximus adds to a sound. That's why I think they moved away from Maximus and went to more of their new plugins called Emphasizer. Now, I'm not telling you guys you can't create a sound with Maximus. For those who already use it, go for it. I'm talking about people who think Maximus is the solve all, end all, be all type thing. First of all, you have to really, really know how to dial this in. I'm a sound designer, I'm a pro sound designer. I know how to mix, and even knowing all this stuff, you really have to like really get into it to really make it sound like something. So because of that, I don't think people hear there's like a plasticky, I don't want to sound like I'm trashing the company, but there's like a comb filter, but to describe this to a beginner, it's like a plasticky kind of lid over the sound that it adds. So let me push into it. And just on default, we're not really messing with the settings here. So here's before. It feels very open. Let's turn it on. Now this genre is really hard to hear, but it does add but again, I'm sure a lot of people give you guys presets and stuff to run through this plugin. You really have to dial it in for your very specific song. I don't think there's like a one thing that could just run Maximus and it sound great. That doesn't sound bad for what we created for this genre. So again, maybe it's genre specific, but again, Maximus tends to add like a plasticky tone. I'm not going to put this at the bottom. I'm just going to say, again, it's one of those like magic pills. People think they're doing something, but they're really not doing much. So we're going to rank it somewhere in the middle. The next technique is clicking in melodies. Now, again, all these techniques I'm naming are proper techniques, but when it comes to producing like stuff that you guys say you aspire to produce, like chords, for example, okay, so like that genre, you're not going to be clicking in notes because there's too much velocity change. You could try to hack your way into it. Like, for example, let me show you guys. Let's use Omnisphere. So what we're going to do is record some chords in here. Let's just record chords, and I'll show you what happens when people click in without knowing how to like humanize it. So let's go to pattern mode. All right, so you guys felt that emotional playing of the chords is very soft, very like, very emotional. All right, let's clone this to a different pattern and show you guys the mistakes beginners tend to make. Let's right click, where are we at here? I don't usually use this, so let's clone pattern. And on this pattern, what we're gonna do is play these back to back. So let's clear up some space. These are like auto name from that split channel thing, so it's all weird now. All right, let's go to song mode here. And on the first thing here, we're going to leave it as normal. On the second one, what I'm going to do is actually hit Alt and reset all the velocity just to show you guys what happens when you draw notes. And then we're going to quantize all the notes too, so that they are on the grid and like not human. Like basically it's just going to sound like a robot. Now get ready because the volume is going to be loud. Does it sound anything like what we just heard over here? And this is the issue that happens when we click in notes. We just don't know about articulation and different velocities because we don't think to turn the velocity down. You think that's just a volume knob. It's actually an articulation knob. Like, for example, if you guys go to busyworksbeats.com/sampler, we have this plugin called the Sampler. It's free. There's a paid version too, but the free one comes with 50 presets right off the bat. So, for example, if you play different velocities, it gives you different tonalities. So let me turn my keyboard channel off. So if I play aggressively, it gives me a certain tone. If I play softer, it plays a different style. So see, if I play harder, it gets more. If I play soft, let me turn this up just a little bit more. If I play soft, so when you're drawing in notes by default, the velocity is, I think, like 77 by default or something like this, or 80, somewhere around there. I don't know the exact value. I think in FL Studio, it's about 80% velocity or 77, one of those two. And you're basically playing like this one. Oops, that's the wrong sound. You're basically playing this sound every single time. It's like sometimes that works, or maybe if you're doing like Waka Flocka Trap, okay? So just understand that clicking in notes has a lot of stuff that you're missing from playing with MIDI. So I think I'm going to readjust my buying guide for beginners is try to get a MIDI controller as early as you can, because there's something magical about just these little velocity changes and timing differences. Okay, now I'll show you guys a couple tips on how to humanize something like this, you know, when you're drawing in notes. Firstly is go to Tools and go to Humanize. I'm pretty sure this comes with FL Stock. You don't have to mess with the start time. You could just mess with the velocity range here. Duration, we don't have to mess with that. But if you want to make it more human, mess with the start time. This will basically move the notes from being perfectly played at the same exact time. Okay, so hit accept. Another thing you want to download from the Image Line forums is called the Remove Overlaps Piano Roll Script. I know it's convoluted. You have to go into the forums. You have to download this file. You have to put it inside the exact folder. It's convoluted, but once you do it, go to Tools, go to Remove Overlaps. That will remove any overlaps, because in FL Studio, when notes overlap, it mutes the note out most of the time. So that is how you humanize. Another way to humanize is hit Alt-S. That's kind of what people kind of rely on, but humans don't play this way every single time. It's not like, that's not always the way I play. Sometimes I play downward. I don't always go. So I think strumming is one of those kind of simplified things that people try to create to make stuff human. Not saying it's wrong, but I think it's overly used. Another thing you could use is Alt-X to change what's called the level scaling. This will help you guys keep the relative velocity, but just turn your articulation velocity down so that we're not triggering samples. Like, for example, the only way to know is like this. Now, if I crank this all the way up, it's going to trigger the highest velocity. Now I can't turn this up any higher, can I? Let me see. There we go. So if the velocity is way up here, it's going to trigger me slamming on the keyboard. But if I just turn everything down relatively, let me turn this down. It now plays a softer velocity and a softer articulation. So that's just a little handy tip. I think that's pretty much it in terms of humanizing your notes in FL Studio. I don't want to go too deep. So, okay, the technique is clicking in melodies. There are people who can click in melodies and make a hit song in 30 seconds. Now, I gotta say that this is one of those things you just don't know the other side until you know the other side. It's kind of like using synth plugins and digital effects and not understanding what actual analog sounds like. It's not wrong, but it's not analog. So for that reason, I'm gonna put this somewhere at the top bottom, okay? So I'll say it's green, but it's at the bottom of the top. And nextly is producing on the grid. This is, again, another bad habit because people don't understand. Again, if you understand what you're doing, fine, there's no rules. But as a beginner, if you're just dragging stuff, and I'm not telling you guys what to do, this is not that. But what a lot of beginners will do is they'll just drag in notes and just copy, hit Control B and copy notes, or hit Shift and just drag stuff around. The issue with this is that everything is super quantized to the grid. That's why these like 2000s beats sound like they're just missing something, is because everything is super quantized to the grid. I don't even know how to, I think we have to change our snap to grid to like a beat or a half beat, and then like I can understand this almost turns music production into more of like video editing in a way. I think more video editors like this approach. This is also, I've seen people in Ableton do it, but there's so many nuances. Like for example, if we're doing boom bap, I might want to nudge this kick just a little to the right without adjusting this kick. So yeah, you can do it by hitting Alt, but what if I wanted to do it to everything? Like, I don't know, it just seems tedious to make small edits like that, like especially on hi-hats, for example. So again, I don't know the shortcuts people use to produce this way, because this is a very kind of archaic way to produce. But again, to each his own. Because you have audio, you can do a lot of cool stuff. So again, there's not a right or wrong way. I just think this is, again, one of those habits producers don't realize they're basically teaching themselves to have very like stiff beats. Now I know what I'm doing, so it's going to sound decent. So here's what happens though is, let's get rid of this overlap here. All right, so what I did, if you guys remember, I hit Alt and I moved the note so it sounds more natural. But again, like what people do is they'll hit Shift Q, quantize it to the grid, and it just sounds so stiff. Now combine this with a very stale velocity like this, and then quantized audio. It's just like, it doesn't sound right. And then they'll try to turn it down thinking that's going to do something. You're not saying it's wrong, it's just not what we played before. So again, it's one of those things where it's like, if you don't know what you're doing, it could be bad. If you do know what you're doing, it can be good. So because it's one of those things that can go in both directions, I'll put it as like number 2 or 3 so far. So soft clipper, did we rank this one? I think soft clipper is good. I just think, again, it's taught as like the easy button, and it doesn't apply to all genres, but it is a pretty good technique on most stuff. Now the last thing here is a very minute technique called auto smoothing in Edison. So for example, a lot of drum kits, the reason their drums sound soft is because they're ripping their drums from other people's stuff. They'll right click, they'll edit in audio editor, and they don't realize there's this setting. I think it's in the edit area. Let me see if I can find this. All right, so under tools, this little scissors icon, if you see where it says click free smooth editing, if this is on and anybody makes a cut, let me show you guys the difference of what happens. So for example, let's say I cut, which again, you got to realize a lot of producers just copy and paste drums. They're not sound designing. Okay. So let's just cut. What it will do is it adds this fade, okay, to the beginning of the sample, this like gradual fade, and it makes drums sound super soft. Okay, now this, we did it more, surgically, so it's not going to be very evident, especially on a snare drum. But to prevent this, what you guys want to do is make sure you turn off that feature. Okay, I don't know if I can go back in time before this, so we're going to have to edit the snare all over again. All right, so let's go to here, turn off click free smoothing, and let me show you guys the difference between cutting out this portion now. Okay, so now there's no like fade. There's no fade. Now, if we want to fade it, you can highlight it and click your fade in button if you want the fade in. Okay, but that's what it was doing before by default because of that one setting that's turned on by default. Again, you guys know I have a lot of gripes with FL Studio. One of them is this: why is that even turned on by default? It just doesn't do the right. I can understand why it might be turned on, but it actually messes up more stuff than it helps. Okay, so just understand that that is being done on a drum per drum level. So if you wonder why your clap's not hitting, your kick's not hitting, your hi-hat's not hitting, your snare hat's not hitting, it's because people don't realize that this is turned on. So because it's one of those blind areas that people don't even know exists, we're gonna mark this as one of the bottom techniques because it ruins samples. Okay, so if I had to rank the bottom one, split by channel is a very bad habit. Auto smooth kills all your drums. Turning up everything, not if you know what you're doing, yeah, but if you don't know what you're doing, really bad habit. Maximus sitting right in the middle, it just doesn't have a home. Clicking in melodies, I think, you can make it sound good, but when you understand velocities and articulation, clicking in melodies just becomes an arduous process, and it just takes the longest of time to do the most basic stuff. Okay. And what does it say? Producing on the grid. Again, if you do know what you're doing, great. If you don't know what you're doing, It just makes your beats sound quantized. Now I meant to mention this. The reason people drag their samples into the playlist is because they think it hits harder. It's not that it hits harder. It's that when you drag stuff into the playlist, FL Studio doesn't turn it down. So you're getting the full volume. If you drag something into the channel rack, however, and wonder why it doesn't sound the same, it's because it's not at the same volume. Okay, so if I hit here, that sounds a lot quieter than this. And that's not because of anything else except for when you click on the channel rack, just turn the volume up. Now even this is turned up higher than the channel rack. But people don't know there's another volume. If you go into the wrench tool, just turn up level adjustment here. Okay, you can crank it up higher. Now this is like, I don't know how much dB they're adding to it, but all right, so that's how you turn up your sample to match what it would do in the playlist. So a lot of people are doing that to compensate for the fact that they don't know how to just turn it up. But again, maybe it's their quick way of going about it. Again, no hard rules here. So again, at the bottom, split by channel, very bad habit. At the bottom too, auto smoothing in Edison kills all drum samples. Turning everything up can be a really bad habit because you're not understanding gain staging. Maximus has a plasticky sound to me. I know it's needed in EDM in some genres, so for that reason, I can't say it's completely terrible. It's not a solve-all at all. You have to tweak it a lot to make it sound good. Clicking in melodies could be worse. I recommend you guys go buy a MIDI controller. Producing on the grid, again, quantizes your sound a lot, and people don't really comprehend a lot of the nuance that you would do in the channel rack, especially the new note repeat features and all these unique things. And lastly, soft clipper on everything. Again, I think it's just producers don't produce outside of a certain genre, so they don't understand that doesn't apply to rock music, to acoustic drums and hip hop, to all these other genres. You can't just slam a soft clipper and call it a day. Yeah, it works on the spins 808, but it doesn't work on, a kick that has a different tone. So I'm not saying, again, always or never. I just want to break down these techniques and show you guys like where they fall apart. So thank you guys for watching. Excuse me. To learn more about music production, go to busyworksbeats.com/premium. Peace out, guys.